Imagine having absolutely everything stripped away from you: your family, your health, your possessions, even your own name. What do you have left? Well, Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the unfathomable, horrific conditions of the Auschwitz concentration camp, discovered something incredible in that exact situation. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." He realized, in the absolute ultimate margins of human suffering, that our inner autonomy, our ability to choose how we respond, can never actually be extinguished, not unless we allow it to be.
Welcome to this explainer. We are diving right into a deeply motivational journey today. We're going to be exploring the psychology of self-transformation, how to find true meaning, and really, how to reclaim control over our lives. We'll be looking at this fascinating intersection of deep existential philosophy and modern psychology to figure out exactly how we can choose our attitude, even when it feels like everything around us is completely falling apart. All right, let's start with Section 1, the quiet desperation.
So over 150 years ago, Henry David Thoreau made this haunting observation. He said that the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. And it's so true, right? It's often not this loud, dramatic crisis. It's more like a nagging, quiet feeling in the background that we're just kind of wasting our potential. And when that nagging feeling hits, when we get troubled by anxiety or guilt or regret, most of us instinctively choose to flee reality. We take what Carl Jung called the safe road. We try to dull our feelings, we endlessly distract ourselves. But Jung warned that this safe road is actually the road of death. The alternative? The road of growth. Now, this road demands that we actually face reality. We have to accept our limits and boldly acknowledge our deep, fundamental need for personal transformation.
Moving right along to Section 2, a choice in suffering.
To truly wrap our heads around this road of growth, we really need to look at someone who faced the absolute ultimate test of human endurance. I'm talking about Viktor Frankl. In 1945, having survived the Nazi concentration camps, he proved that even when you are stripped of absolutely everything, one vital thing remains perfectly intact: your inner discourse. I want to set the scene using his own incredibly vivid words. He wrote, "The dawn was gray around us. Gray was the sky above. Gray the snow and the pale light of dawn. Gray the rags in which my fellow prisoners were clad. Gray their faces." He was utterly immersed in the depths of an existential crisis. He was facing imminent death, starvation, and complete, overwhelming hopelessness. But then, right in the middle of all that bleakness, a profound shift occurred. Frankl wrote that in a violent protest against the hopelessness of his situation, he literally sensed his spirit piercing through the enveloping gloom. He said, "From somewhere I heard a victorious yes in answer to the question of my existence, of an ultimate purpose." Even while freezing, even while starving to death, Frankl realized he still retained the ultimate freedom. He had the freedom to choose his inner response to his suffering. What Frankl experienced there was an epiphany. Now, in psychological terms, an epiphany is a sudden, profound illumination. It's a moment that violently strips away all our inauthentic defenses, those fake walls we constantly build to hide from reality, and it forces a courageous encounter with our actual, unfiltered existence. It connects deeply to what modern psychology calls autonomy. Autonomy is that inherent human desire to be the causal agent of your own life, to be in the driver's seat. Frankl remarkably reclaimed his autonomy in a place where external freedom was literally non-existent.
Which brings us to Section 3, the meaning of suffering.
So, how exactly should we view the pain and struggle in our own lives? Well, Carl Jung believed that psychological suffering shouldn't just be viewed as some burdensome illness that we need to cure. He believed it can actually be a vital stimulus. Suffering literally compels us to come to terms with who we are. It demands that we grow. And to escape that quiet desperation we talked about earlier and actually turn our suffering into growth, we can look at self-determination theory. It shows us exactly what innate psychological needs we have to satisfy. First up is autonomy, the need to act in total harmony with our true self. Second is competence, the need to experience mastery over our environment and control outcomes. And third is relatedness, the deep, powerful will to interact, connect, and care for others. When these needs are frustrated, we suffer, but when they're fulfilled, that's when we truly flourish. Frankl actually observed this exact dynamic playing out in the camps. He noted that the prisoners who found a way to endure, the ones who kept going, they always had a greater purpose that fulfilled these psychological needs. For some of them, it was the love of a child waiting for them on the outside. For others, it was an unfinished creative task they felt they had to complete. But, as Frankl tragically noted, the prisoner who had lost faith in the future, his future, was doomed. Without a greater purpose, they lost their spiritual hold.
And once that was gone, they rapidly subjected themselves to mental and physical decay.
All right, let's move into section 4, purpose and purposeful action.
Now, it's a super common trap to think that the meaning of life is just waiting for us on some distant mountaintop, and we can only act once we've figured everything out perfectly. But existential psychology tells us something completely different. It says that life's true test is about right action right now. And this perfectly illustrates a core tenet of Morita therapy, which is a really fascinating Japanese school of psychotherapy. Practitioner David Reynolds has this great advice. He says, let the feelings take care of themselves. When you get good at doing what needs doing in your life, the feelings stop giving you such trouble. Think about how often we wait until we feel confident before doing something scary. But the reality is you have to learn to take purposeful action even when you are actively feeling anxious or depressed.
Because honestly, if you are waiting for a life completely devoid of negative emotions, you are going to be waiting forever. Abraham Maslow, the great psychologist, spent his career studying the healthiest, most flourishing people in society, the ones he called self-actualizers. And you know what he found? He found that self-actualizing does not mean a transcendence of all human problems. Conflict, anxiety, frustration, sadness can all be found in healthy human beings. The defining trait of a truly healthy person isn't that they never feel fear. Not at all. It's that they have the courage to take purposeful action right in the face of those feelings. So, I really have to ask you a confronting question here. Are you taking the road of death? Are you delaying the changes you know deep down you need to make, just hoping the fear will magically disappear one day? The Stoic philosophers, and even modern visionaries like Steve Jobs, they used the imminence of death as a tool. Knowing that our time on this earth is brief forces a massive wake-up call. If we just fritter away our time taking Jung's safe road, we are basically guaranteeing a future plagued by the exact same guilt and anxiety we're desperately trying to avoid right now.
So let's get into section 5, your practical action plan.
How do we actually start doing this in the real world? How do we stop taking the safe road and begin realigning our lives toward actual authenticity? Well, we need a highly practical blueprint, and Ralph Waldo Emerson provided a brilliant step-by-step formula for this kind of personal transformation. He wrote, sow a thought and you reap an action. Sow an act and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. It's that simple, but that profound. It starts with just selecting an aim, picking a challenge that sparks your curiosity. You do not have to find your ultimate lifelong passion immediately. You just need to sow that first thought, and then literally force yourself into the action that reality demands of you. Now, as you start taking those actions, you're going to want to transform why you are doing them. In psychology, this is known as organismic integration theory. The goal is to move away from just chasing external rewards, which is called external regulation, and we also want to move past acting out of pure guilt or trying to protect our ego, which is introjected regulation. Instead, we want to move toward identified regulation, where you are consciously valuing a goal. And finally, we want to get all the way down to integrated regulation. That happens when you fully, completely assimilate your goals into your true self. You do this by making sure your actions actually align with your core personal values and by building relationships that support your autonomy. Ultimately, you stop looking for the why out there and you find it inside yourself. And look, when the inevitable anxiety flares up as you pursue this totally new destiny, and trust me, it will flare up, remember another absolutely brilliant piece of wisdom from Emerson. Do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain. I challenge you to pick a difficult task today. Pick something that makes you slightly uncomfortable but genuinely sparks your curiosity, and just leap into action. Crush your anxieties through the sheer, unstoppable momentum of doing what needs to be done. It doesn't matter if you feel like doing it in the moment or not. Just act. This brings us to our final section, number 6, the ultimate human freedom. We've traveled all the way from the quiet desperation of everyday modern life to the absolute ultimate margins of suffering in Viktor Frankl's story. And the overarching theme here, the huge takeaway, is that you, and only you, are responsible for your self-actualization. You see, authenticity is not some permanent state. It's not an achievement you unlock in a video game and then just keep forever. It is an ongoing, daily dialogue between your fears and your freedom. In existentialism, there's this famous concept, existence precedes essence. All that means is you aren't born a finished product. You build your essence through your freely chosen actions, day by day. Being authentic requires constantly embracing the messy chaos of existence, acknowledging your profound freedom, and taking full responsibility for the narrative of your life. Viktor Frankl carried a quote from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche with him through the absolute darkest days in those camps. and it serves as the ultimate thesis for enduring any suffering and achieving any transformation. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. When your intrinsic motivation is locked in, when your true purpose is clear, the obstacles, the pain, the anxieties, they don't stop you. They simply become the terrain that you walk upon. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final lingering question to reflect on today. Life is constantly questioning you, daily and hourly. It is practically begging you to take the courageous road of growth. So tell me, and much more importantly, tell yourself, what is your why? Keep seeking, keep taking action, and I'll see you in the next explainer.